afternoon.
Yeah, hello, Diver Marina. How are you today?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks for asking. I'm diving in this beautiful tank, so I'm having a great time.
Oh, absolutely. I bet it feels incredible in there, especially on a day like today that's a little bit chilly. It's kind of a San Francisco summer outside. What's it feel like on the other side of the acrylic?
Well, over here it's about 78 degrees, so very comfortable with this wetsuit. Feels like I'm in a nice heated swimming pool.
Wow, that sounds pretty nice. Now we have lots of different exhibits here in the Steinhardt Aquarium. We have our Philippine Coral Reef, but Diver Marina, there are a couple of other exhibits that you dive in as well, and those feel, I'm sure, quite a bit different.
That's right. Right across the way we have the California Coast Tank, which mimics, as it says, waters off our coast, and it's about 52 degrees, much colder.
Yeah, so lots of different ecosystems here in our aquarium, lots of different temperatures, lots of different balances in the water, lots of different things that our biologists are accounting for. Now, I mentioned earlier, this is the Philippine Coral Reef, and it is such an incredible place because of something called biodiversity. Now, Marina, what exactly does biodiversity mean?
Well, it means that there's a lot of different types of life. So when a reef like this one is biodiverse, you're finding lots of different species of fish, of corals, of invertebrates. So it's a lot to see.
Absolutely, lots of different things to see here. Now, there are lots of different types of fish in here. Does anyone think they can guess how many different species or different types of fish we have in this exhibit? Do you have a guess? 10? Alright, maybe I heard 30 over here. Do you have a guess? 150? Oh, we have some good guesses, yeah. 1,000? Ooh. Yeah. 100. Alright, Diver Marina, we have lots of very good guesses. Now, how many different types of fish do we have in here?
We have about 120 different kinds of fish.
Alright, so we have some pretty good answers, some pretty good guesses, very close guesses, and that's only a fraction of what we would see in the actual Philippine Coral Reef. You can imagine that out of these, say, about 1,200 fish that we have in this exhibit, individual fish, you can imagine that all of those fish were a different species. That would be roughly the equivalent to what we would see in the wild. So the biodiversity in the Philippines is so incredibly high, and that's one of the reasons why our researchers here at the Academy work very closely with scientists in the Philippines to study the waters over there. Now, we've talked a little bit about the fish, but there's something else in this exhibit that's very special. Diver Marina, what am I thinking of?
Me!
Well, you are special too, of course.
Maybe it's not that.
Okay, maybe not that, but we're thinking... Ooh, a bit of feedback there. We'll see what we can do to make sure that doesn't happen again. So, we were talking a little bit, or about to talk a little bit about the coral. Oh yeah, this is a coral reef. There wouldn't be anything without the coral. Now, Diver Marina, what exactly is coral?
Well, coral is an animal. It's an invertebrate, very tiny one, related to sea anemones and jellyfish.
Oh, that's incredible. So it's related to sea anemones and jellyfish. Now, those jellyfish, we know they have their tentacles, and we know that sea anemones, they have their tentacles. You can see some sea anemones up here. And coral, too, have their very own tentacles. Now, I have a picture right here. This is of an individual coral polyp blown up to scale so that you can see it a little bit more closely. You can see a few more details of this incredible coral. Now, Diver Marina, this picture sure makes the coral look big, but how large does it really get?
It's really only the size of the tip of your pinky fingernail. It's very, very small, so this is a very enlarged image.
Now, we have a couple of different colonies in this exhibit. Do you think you can show us some of these colonies?
Yeah, we actually have quite a few. One of them right here is a plate coral. So, like the name suggests, a couple of these look like large dinner plates.
And we have a couple of other different shapes that these incredible corals come in. Can anyone point to one that maybe looks like a brain? Do we see any brain coral in the exhibit? Oh, over here? Where do we see it? Right over here, absolutely. So we have brain coral, we have plate coral. What about any coral that looks like branches? Do we see any coral that's kind of branching out? Maybe we can point to it? Yeah? Yeah? Back here? Oh, excellent. Some branching coral over here. And, oh, we see some more branching coral over there. Absolutely. So lots of different types of coral here in this ecosystem. And that coral, well, it needs a very special balance. And Diver Marina, we work very hard to keep the balance of this water nice and healthy, don't we?
We do. There's a lot of minerals and elements that we place into this water to make it just like the conditions these corals would find in the wild.
Absolutely, and it's so important for these coral reefs to be healthy because if we notice, do we think, are the fish interacting with all of the corals that we have in the exhibit? Do we see them interacting? Absolutely. We see them maybe swimming in and out of the coral, and actually some fish, they might nibble on the coral to help make sure that it doesn't grow too much. So these fish, they interact quite a bit with the coral, and so it's important for these coral reefs to be nice and healthy, for that balance, especially in the ocean, to be nice and healthy. Now, we have divers just like Diver Marina, we have biologists working very hard to make sure that the balance in this tank is healthy, but in the oceans, we're having a tougher time, and it all starts with what's happening in our atmosphere. Now, when we burn things like fossil fuels, things like carbon, coal, natural gases, that creates a lot of carbon dioxide, and that carbon dioxide gets into our atmosphere and it gets absorbed by our oceans, which are kind of like a kitchen sponge. And by absorbing that carbon dioxide, it throws off the balance of our oceans, making them a little bit more acidic. Now, Diver Marina, how does that affect some of these incredible corals?
Well, unfortunately, because the water chemistry changes, it becomes too acidic. That makes it hard for these corals to build their very strong structures that they would normally build with calcium. So instead, it makes it a little bit weaker.
Yeah, so it makes their skeletons a little bit weaker, kind of like building a house out of layers of cardboard instead of layers of strong wood. But luckily, there are things that we can do to help out these incredible ecosystems, which are home to 1/4 of the animals in the ocean. We can do things like supporting public transportation initiatives. Many of you might have taken Muni or BART to get all the way out here to the Academy today, and by doing that, by riding together, we're really thriving together and reducing the amount of that carbon dioxide that gets into the air in the first place. Well, Diver Marina, you and I have been chatting for quite some time. What do you say we take a question or two before we feed our fish?
Certainly.
All right, any questions for Diver Marina before we feed our fish? Oh, do you have a question? Are we thinking about our question? Okay. All right, what's your question? Oh, so we were wondering, so does the greenhouse effect change the atmosphere, change the way the ocean, how healthy the ocean is? Maybe we can talk a little bit about how there's kind of a heat trapping blanket that keeps all of that warmth in. How's that affecting our corals?
Well, that is actually creating warmer waters in a sense. And warmer waters has been linked to coral bleaching, which is a little bit different than ocean acidification, but in the same way, what's happening is the algae that lives in the tissues of the coral gets expelled, so that causes these corals to turn white. And if they stay like that for too long, they eventually die. And a lot of this is happening in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia.
Absolutely, that's a very good question. Again, burning those fossil fuels, carbon, coal, natural gas, putting that carbon dioxide into the air, and it creates a kind of a heat trapping blanket that makes our atmosphere just a bit warmer. But luckily, there are things we can do, like using public transportation, supporting community initiatives for solar power, green energy. So lots of different things that we can do together as a community to help out these incredible ecosystems. All right, well, Diver Marina, what do you say we feed our fish right now?
Absolutely.
All right, so it's time for us to feed our fish. Now, I'm going to need everyone's help in order to do this. We are going to be counting down from 5. Are we ready to feed the fish? I think it's just about time. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Whoa! Wow, that sure is a feeding frenzy. Wow, that is incredible. Now, Diver Marina, what's on the menu for our fish today?
Well, today we are feeding them some algae pellets, some protein pellets, and some dried seaweed.
Oh, that sounds pretty interesting. Very delicious for the fish indeed. They sure seem to like it. Now, I'm noticing, Diver Marina, some of the bigger fish are getting to that food, maybe faster than some of the smaller fish over here. What about these amphibians right here? Are they going to be able to eat?
Yeah, so everybody gets fed, but they have different strategies. So these ones right here, these guys are sort of waiting for the food from the top to trickle down. They can't really compete with these larger, faster fish, so they just hang out and wait for the crumbs.
So I guess you could say it kind of seems like all of these fish have their own place within this ecosystem. It's yet another reason why these ecosystems are so important to all of the animals that live in them. Well, that's pretty incredible. It's always so much fun to watch these fish eat, to watch their natural behaviors in the exhibit, especially when they're looking for food. But Marina, what do you say we take a couple more questions?
Sure.
All right, we have another question right here. Oh, so Diver Marina, we have an observer over here, a young scientist who says that he noticed one of the fish hanging on to one of the other fish. What are some of the natural behaviors that we might be witnessing?
Well, they could be partners, who knows? They might be fighting, might be eating together, I really don't know.
Yeah, so lots of different behaviors. It's always fun to have this kind of window into this ecosystem and watch. We could have been seeing a bunch of different behaviors for a bunch of different reasons for why they might be doing that. All right, we have another question in front. Oh, so Diver Marina, a lot of the fish in this tank, what are some of the natural predators for that?
Well, you would not find them in this tank because otherwise we would be depleted of fish. But some natural predators include sharks and larger fish, such as that. We have them in the Sharks and Rays Lagoon upstairs by the planetarium. So you can observe them there. They would be in this ecosystem naturally.
Absolutely. And our biologists are always working together to make sure that all of the fish in our exhibit are nice and healthy. So our friend over here who was observing that earlier has shown us what that is. We have the cleaner wrasses. So there are a couple of different types of fish in this exhibit, a couple of different types of wrasses that actually have a relationship or a connection with some of the other fish. They'll actually clean up some of the other fish. So really interesting again to see some of those behaviors. All right, well, Diver Marina, we've learned so much today. I'd like to say thank you so much. Will you be up at the top ready for maybe some questions or maybe down here ready for some high fives?
Yeah, we'll do high fives, pictures down here, and if you have any more questions, I'll be out by the planetarium.
All right, well, why don't we give Diver Marina a big, big, big round of applause.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I hope you all have a fabulous rest of your afternoon. If you have any lingering questions, I'll be right here for just a minute or two, and then eventually you can find Diver Marina up at the top on the dive deck.